What's up, everyone? Beast Mode back here with another video. So today I just wanted to quickly recap my Nationals experience, maybe briefly talk about the deck list. There is a much more in-depth in-person deck profile on Echo Yugioh's channel. I will link it in the description. We had covered the deck in person, so you actually can see the real life cards. But this is the deck I played at Nationals, and I played for some pods the next day. This year I went 7-2 at Nationals. I don't remember. I think I got 20 something place, but none of that really matters because of the fact that it was only cut to top 8. So a lot of players just dropped from the event, which completely changes all the tiebreakers. But first thing I'd say is that the list overall performed well. I did not lose due to the list not being good. I don't recall making any clear mistakes or misplays that would have cost me the game. I lost round 2 to Bayou Turbo. Game 3, just an early dark arm hit the board, hit the back rows that just were not chainable, and I just was not able to out the dark arm. And I lost round 7, I believe, to Triple Dribble. That's the player's Discord name. Great Blackwing player. Just turn 1 dust shoots pretty strong, and dark arm again, early dark arm like game 2. I just couldn't do anything. So I wouldn't say I got sacked or anything like that. That's just the way Yu-Gi-Oh is, and overall the deck performed well. A few changes I would consider making is maybe Trag again. I keep going back and forth with this card. I talked about it in the profile. It actually won me a game versus Hero Beat. It just sat in defense and didn't do anything. I don't know why they didn't spark it, but I just sat there. It was like 3,600, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't get over it because that deck's kind of not that strong, in my opinion. But Ill Blood was fun this event. I really played it just for frogs because the problem with frogs, especially games 2 and 3, is that they side deck in DD Crow, and that really hurts a lot of our combo and OTK potential because the way you beat frogs, you cannot beat them the way you play every other deck. Like you play for the advantage game, grind game. You can't outgrind frogs; it's just never going to happen. And so you have to kind of make it a more OTK oriented game. And Illblood lets you do that a little bit easier just because if you can normal summon this, get it off maybe a turtle that you crash or something along those lines, and you can really make some synchro plays or off of a return or something along those lines. Like you can make some crazy boards with this card. Also, like games 2 and 3, it pairs up well with Burial, which is some of the things I was finding with the deck that if you can play against frogs, people are side decking. I know Fraser Smith, his last build had like triple Crow in the sideboard, so that really slows you down because you try to make like a call play, they crow the target, book of life, same idea. You maybe stack for plague, they hit you with the DD Crow, and then like you just can't OTK, and then you're just sitting there getting destroyed by Caius. So this here gives you that extension where it's like, okay, they crow your book of life target, but you can just burial it back and kind of combo off. That was my thought. And this here is like, obviously, I went back and forth with this. I'm not going to lie. I went back and forth between Caius and Illblood. This is definitely not as strong into Blackwing. Like, there's times where you just have a recruiter, Pyramid Turtle, they sure an attack, and then you end on Goblin Zombie. And, they set up like a Vayu with Icarus. So you're trying to play around Icarus, and you can do that with Caius because then you can distribute the Goblin, Caius the Shura, and like you're in business. But if you have Illblood in your hand, like it's not ideal to have to summon Illblood. Most of the time they have Kalut. It's annoying if you ever want to go to battle with this card. Bottomless is the real thing. And then if you do happen to normal summon it and then try to special summon, they have Royal Oppression. So it's just like so many cards that just counter this. Specifically Blackwing, I would say. Vayu has that option too. So, but I do like this in other matchups. I think the card's just really good at extending plays. But overall, we went with Jar Greed over Legacy because we want people to believe that we're on triple Legacy. And again, I think these cards are falling out. I don't see them being as spectacular as everyone thought they were up until, they were good because nobody expected them, and now everybody expects them. So I just don't think they're there. This card was really, good because we suspected a lot of Lad. Once we saw Dimitri get third place with his frog deck with double Lad, I believe was in it. Like I think that kind of scared everybody. It was like, okay, we need to have at least some way of outing that card. And this really does that job well. Like you can just flip Jar, chain D Prison on attack deck and like win the game because they do have to commit a few cards into making the Lad. So again, but those players are smart. They know that there's a bunch of draw traps around. They're not going to play Light and Darkness Dragon now. So I just think it's going to be this rotation of cards where people are going to stop playing jaw traps maybe and just stop playing real traps again, because now it's like, are those real traps in the back row or are those draw traps? So you kind of, if this isn't here, and I only played one, so it's not really a big deal, but more or less was a tech. But I do think that these cards are just not as good as they were once everybody knows that players are on them. I know I was on the scrap iron build at one point, but in this field, I felt like Machinas were going to be big with Machina Fortress and stuff, and I just wanted to be able to deprison, because the thought behind Scarecrow was, okay, well, let them attack our recruiters if they do decide to attack, because what happens is they'll build a board of monsters. Maybe they have 2 or 3 monsters. They'll attack your recruiter, and then when you try to end on Goblin Zombie, they attack the Goblin Zombie too. Whereas, like, the Scrap Iron Scarecrow prevents that. Or like sometimes it's like turn 1 you set Goblin, they summon Armageddon Knight, and you never want to deprison that. Like they, let's say it's value and they send a piece of value there, piece of the Armed Master or whatever, Arm Wing, and they try to attack a Goblin. Like Scarecrow's just free there because you just flip it and set it back down again, and then next turn you can make a play. But against Machines and stuff, there's never a time where I want to just scrap iron that and then like tribute for Caius, because of course the effect will trigger. So I felt that just going with triple D prison into the field made more sense, and we cut down on 1 road, mainly because I really thought that frogs were going to be there every round. And double road is not good against frogs. Obviously, it's strong against blackwings, but not very good against frogs. 1 road is not bad, like I say in the deck profile, just more or less insulates you when you side deck in some rugs. But anyway, sideboard was really good. Strongest card was probably DD Assailant, to be honest. It could be Sirocco, but I feel like this card just better because of the fact that you don't have to have a monster on, like, it doesn't matter if you have a monster on the field, where Sirocco is very specific. Of course, I always side decked in heavy. These actually, so my rounds were, first round was Blackwings. I nearly lost that first round. That's like the toughest round for me, just because I'm not into the, I'm not Yu-Gi-Oh mode right now. Like, I'm just trying to work into it. That really went back and forth. Very close. Good player. I was able to kind of eke out a win. Round 2, I ended up playing a player from, I believe, New York, and great player. Won game 1 with like offering, I think. I don't remember how it actually went down. I remember game 3, there was Dark Arm Gruffer on the board, and I was trying to do a DD Assailant, ram the Dark Arm, and they had, the last Dark was Necro Gardener in the Grave, and they ended up drawing a Dark, I think, for their turn, and just pitched another Dark with a Gruffer, and that was it. They just killed my whole board. So I think that player actually went pretty far in the tournament too, so it was, I wasn't overly upset, but what are you going to do? It's Yu-Gi-Oh! Round 3, I played, I think, Synchro Cat. Round 4 was another Blackwing player, I believe. I played overall, I don't remember the exact rounds. I think it was 4 Blackwing. I beat 3. And then I ended up losing to Triple Dribble, who I think got like 12th place. And then I played 2 Value. I played a Synchro Cat, and I played a Hero Beat. And I played Ciliabot on, who actually won RBET. I think it was Orlando with Dragon Turbo. I actually played them last round on Dragon Turbo. I was very lucky. I ended up getting a 2-0 win, but sometimes that deck just kind of falls on its face, and they just drew poorly. That's really all it was. I got lucky in that sense, but I ended up finishing 7-2, and it was an overall good run with the deck. There's not much more you can say. It was very scary to begin with, because they were talking about it being 8 rounds, cut to top 8, which would have ended up being, and again, don't quote me on my math, because I don't remember the exact number of players, and I don't know what the calculation would have been, but it was something like 10 plus players that were X and 1 were not going to make it into top cut. Because they just did top 8, and really with the amount of players we had nearly 500 players. It needed to be 9 rounds. So players kind of voiced our concerns, and the judges were great. They ended up increasing, the start of round 2, they announced that it's going to be 9 rounds of Swiss, which was good because that's what we needed, but it was still going to be cut to top 8. So I was okay with it being cut to top 8, just because that's kind of how the old school YCS and SJCs were. And a lot of players don't even remember that, but they used to just be always cut to top 8. It used to be very, very hard to actually get an invite to these events, to nationals and stuff. Like, you had a top 4 a regional to get an invite. So over the years, it just seems to have gotten easier and easier. And I'm not all for like top 64 at regionals and this, that, and the other, but that's beside the point. Like, I think that if there's 500 players, like cut to top 16 makes sense. And that's what the policy, Konami's policy, they have it kind of broken down for the main event. It says, they dictate how many rounds, how many players, and what the cut is. Obviously, if you have 1,000 players, then, cut to top 16 is kind of may not be enough. I think it's cut to top 32 for that number or whatever. But I'm hoping that they update the policy. I'm hearing through the grapevine that they usually update their policy like after the world season, and hopefully we get like a specific policy for side events or ultimate time wizard events, because I just don't want to like fly to an event and then they say it's 8 rounds when it really needs to be 9, and kind of like a lot of that's like just taken out of your hands, you know what I mean? Like the reality is, well, people say, well, just don't lose, but it's there's only one player that goes undefeated in the room, so statistically it's very hard to do that. I have gone undefeated in online tournaments, 9-0, 8-0, whatever, but it's not an easy thing to do, and this game is full of variance, so, it's a matter of time before somebody slams double whirlwind sure on you turn one and you just can't win. So I do think that if you are X-1 or 7-2 out in a big field, I think that's a reasonable score to make it into top cuts of events. But I'm hoping they update that. That was my one complaint with the event. Luckily, they gave us 9 rounds. I appreciate the judges hearing everybody out, and they really talked it over, and we're able to do that. But I'm hoping that we can just kind of fix the whole policy, and just so players know exactly what it is when we go in there, because people are flying from all over the place and spending a lot of money to do this. I nearly didn't even get out to the event just because of the issue going on. Like, it's a big commitment. People got their flights canceled and had to rebook and reschedule, and it's a big deal to fly out there and then have a tournament structure that is not ideal. But they did right. They got us 9 rounds, and the other thing too is the pricing. The pricing's kind of not that great in my opinion. Like, I think most would agree. Like, if you don't get first, second, or third, you get nothing essentially. And I guess it's not terrible. At least like the pricing is very much heavy. It's at the top. But like you don't get anything. Like, you get a play mat, the hamster mat, which I literally played this deck in a pod, and I played for like, I don't know, hour and a half maybe. And pods are like 3 or 4 rounds, I think, 3 rounds, and you get a play mat too. So if you win, you just get a play mat. So again, the pricing I think needs to be reworked, because these events are getting huge. Like I said, there probably would have been over 500 players if there wasn't a bunch of flight issues. Like, flying in and then getting home was a whole nother nightmare. I know they were still canceling flights in certain airlines and stuff. So but I do think there would have been over 500 players. Like, it's time, I think, at this point, where we get like dedicated top 8 mats or something. Like, this right here is like getting huge, and I can almost foresee there being a large SJC in the future, or YCS. I don't even know what they call them nowadays, YCS, in the future, of just like a time wizard event. And I do think a lot of modern players want to play this format, because like I hear from a lot of modern players, especially during the event, like, this format's bad, it's dice roll, it's just terrible. But like, that's all they play. They only play modern, so they're still there to play because they got an invite, they're gonna play nationals. But like, if they had the opportunity to play in the time wizard event, which runs at the exact same time as the main event, that I think a lot of them would have considered playing in the ultimate time wizard. And there are a lot of players I do know who, like, my brother was one of them. He was like, this format is awful in modern, and he had an invite for nationals for modern, and he was like, I just don't have the cards. I cannot play. There's absolutely zero chance of me even making top cut. So I'm just going to play Time Wizard. He went 7-2 with Amaryllis, but we had a pretty strong showing. But I just think that if they dedicated a YCS or to just Time Wizard, I think that the turnout would be huge. But overall, the event's it's way cooler just to meet people, be around people that you see online all the time. You put names to faces and faces to names and all that. And I think like everybody, there wasn't a single person I didn't want to be around. Everybody was cool. Everybody hung out. I had conversation with so many players. And again, I don't want to like shout out individual players because I feel like I'll miss people and I don't want anyone to be upset. But I will shout out to the group. Everybody I interacted with was completely cool, and everybody was cheering for each other. It was awesome. I actually think that someone's deck got misplaced and somebody had turned it in, which is like something you don't really hear of often. Most of the time you just hear about people's cards just getting stolen, taken, and no one does anything with it. But I believe someone was able to get their deck found at like Lost and Found or whatever. So like, that's really the community right there. And of course there's always some toxicity. You're never going to be without that. But from my experience at nationals, again, there was not a single person I didn't want to be around. There was not a single person I didn't want to have a conversation with. So and that's really more about the events for me than playing. But obviously, if you're going to play in the event, you want to have a fair shot at topping the event. And luckily they gave us 9 rounds, so that was like really cool that changed, because if it was just 8 rounds, it would have been so many players that were X-1 that didn't get in, and that's completely out of their hands. Like, they have no control what their opponents are. You play who sits down in front of you. So but I think that they're going to work on that. I do think that there's going to be a more focus on these ultimate time wizards because they're just so big at this point. But I just want to do a quick recap. Like I said, I went 7-2 with this deck. Played majority of Black Wings. More than half my rounds were Black Wing, or just about half my rounds were Black Wings. I did not play a single frog on during nationals. The pods the next day I played one, and I was able to win. I played one pod with zombies. I ended up winning the mat, and I said, you know what? I think I'm zombied out for the weekend. I played a pod with like Machina Control, Quick Draw, Machina Quick Draw that didn't even have a full side extra deck. I ended up losing that pod, and I made it to the finals with Amaryllis. I played my brother's Amaryllis deck, and I think I lost to Fairies, but Christia hit the board, and I couldn't do anything game 3. That kind of shuts down Amaryllis. But the pods are fun, definitely fun. They're worth your time for a playmat. I feel like it's probably not worth your time for a playmat to top 8, the second largest or the largest event since Edison, to get 4th place and only get a playmat. I think that's kind of crazy, but hopefully prizing gets better. I still encourage everyone to try to play in one of these Ultimate Time Wars. They're so cool, and the only way that they get better and the only way they get improved prize support is if we play in them. So we have to kind of we have to show that there is a want and a need for these events. So Konami steps up and hopefully gives us a better product. But overall, I have no regrets. It was awesome flying out. It was scary. We almost didn't make it out there. I know coming home, we had no issues coming home, but there were other players and people who were sitting in the airport with like canceled flights for like a whole day. So, that was not going to be fun. But we made it out, and at this point, I think that my next in-person event will be RBET New York. I'm already booked in terms of signed up for that. That's pretty close by, so I'll be definitely there. I should be on an online tournament at some point. Right at this point, I think I'm going to take a little bit of a zombie break and maybe slam some other cards. I'm still going to be playing and still be making some content. So again, I don't want to shout out any specific players because I just don't want there to be anybody upset or felt like they were left out. So I just will shout out the whole Edison group there and everyone that I met. And with that being said, I'll see y'all on the next one.